This is your video room tour of the sculpture room. So as you're working on sculptures, I'm just going to show you where you find things that you need and all that. So first up, this is your spot. This is going to be where you'll find a storage compartment that you'll put your name on with a piece of tape and your hour, and that'll be yours for the trimester. So on the inside here, you've got plenty of room for the size projects that we're going to be working on in the room. So you'll always want to make sure that you're seated while you're working on this edge here where you've got a spot to put your legs underneath. That allows us a lot of walking space in the room. With 36 bodies in here, you can probably imagine just how hard it is to move. That's why I let all these middle areas be walking paths. Right, so let's say that's my spot. Here's what I need to be able to get ready. First thing I'll do is make sure that I've got a board to put my project on at the end of the day. And I've got a plastic bag. These larger trash bags are great to use. You can use for the entire trimester as you're working. So I'll have that at my spot. Then to work with clay, over in this area of the room, you're going to find these boards. These make your cleanup a lot easier in the room. So we'll place this right on top of the working space. They help out because they're not a shiny surface with polyurethane like the tables are, so your clay will not stick to them. It'll be a good thing that you can use to get moisture out of clay if need be. Right, so now we got a spot to work on. Now we're going to bring you to the area of the room where you'll find the tools that you use. So that's over here. So you'll oftentimes want to have a little cup slip. So you'll take one of these yogurt cups, spoon out a little bit of the slip. Don't need a lot. A lot of times the goopy stuff at the bottom of the container is the good stuff to use for glue, so sticking clay together. You can also use this to smooth out cracks on your project. Right, then over here we've got the wooden tools and the metal tools. The wooden tools are going to be great for sculpting and modeling with. Oftentimes I like to use one of these that has a bit more of an edge to it. So a lot of times I'll grab one of those. Over here we've got forks. These are great for making score marks, so I always will have one of those. Score marks are the first step for how you connect clay to clay. There's a variety of tools in here. Loop tools, larger ones are back here. We've got fettling knives. These are great for slicing clay. A lot of times you want to have one of these at the table for your group to use. Over here you've got rolling pins. These are great for making slabs, and these wooden slats are used to keep the slabs at an even thickness. You probably won't be using these until we get to our slab project or if we're making handles. Right here we've got some different smoothing tools here. These are sponges. We've got a variety of different kinds. These you just get a little bit of water in them and you can use them to smooth out your clay. At the end of the day, this is what you use to keep your project from drying out. So you get your towel just a little bit wet like this. Squeeze out as much water as you can. Okay, and that'll go on top of the clay to keep it from drying out each day inside the plastic bag. So that's it for over here for the tools that you need to work with. So you bring that over to your spot. Again, most days we're going to be working on clay after instructions, so you can, even the moment you come into the room, get out your clay tools and get your spot ready to work. Other things I want to mention over in this area of the room, this is where you're going to find the towels that at the end of the hour, these are microfiber cloths that we get wet, and then your table will want to make sure that your entire table is cleaned off. You work on those wooden boards so that way you have less to clean off, but this room is used for other classes as well, so we got to keep the clay dust down and wipe them down at the end of each hour. Other things, so you'll work on your project throughout the hour, and then 5 minutes before the end of the hour I'll call time for cleaning up, and during that time you'll want to put away everything where you got it. The clay that's too dry to work with will go in this white bucket over here. That's clay that we'll recycle. Any clay that's still good, you can just keep with your project in your storage bag. Any new clay that you want to work with, so throughout the hour you can come back and get clay as you need it. You'll come into one of these buckets back here and you'll find fresh clay. Please only take out the clay that you're going to use at that moment, because the clay will dry out pretty quickly and it will make it so that we have to recycle it more frequently if you just have a stack of clay sitting at your table. So you'll work on your projects. Again, 5 minutes before the end of the hour, I'll call time for cleanup. At that point, you'll take your project, you'll put it right on top of your board. This is just so that way you can keep your project steady. You'll drape that project with this wet towel. Then inside this plastic bag, your project goes. Just open this up. Okay, so after you're totally done working for the day and it's time to clean up, you'll put your project inside here. Now, just like anything, any spot where air can get in can cause things to dry out. So with clay, that can be a real bad thing for your project. So you'll take that bag and you'll want to wrap the underside of that bag underneath your project so that way there's not any way for air to get in. A lot of times I'll also just kind of press out as much of the air as possible before I put it in my storage bin. Again, right in here. Woo! Here, if there's any kind of paperwork that you're doing, planning sheets or anything like that, this is where you're going to want to turn it in. Just find the drawer that has the number for your hour and turn it in there. Rubrics and planning sheets you'll find over here in the storage area. These cabinets open up just by pulling on that little tab there, and you'll find things sorted based on the project. So there's the sculpture, jewelry down here, and then sculpture 2 is going to be on the bottom. That's where you'll find a lot of those things. Over here you're going to find the area where you will be turning in projects. Now, to turn in a project officially, you want to get a rubric, which will be passed out to you near the end of the project. You'll want to complete that rubric. There'll be a self-scoring area, your name on there, and then also on the very bottom of a rubric, let me just show you what one of them looks like here. There's a spot that says fire, yes, no. This is a real important box to take care of here. So on the bottom of the rubric it says fire, yes, no. If you want to keep the project, you say yes, because fire means that it's going to go through the kiln. That's the term that we use for going through the kiln. So back there in the back of the room. And then I will keep the project. So after a project has been graded, you'll receive your rubric back. So for example, your project would go underneath the rubric, just like this. You got your name on there, you've self-scored and everything like that. After a project's been graded, if it's meant to be kept, so you selected yes, I push it to the back area over here, and I'll just let it dry out. The rubric I will be, leaving remarks on and putting in the grade book. So you'll get that back from me, usually the day after or so the project has been turned in. And then once it's totally dried out, it'll look like this. This is a bone dry piece here. So the project is no longer cool to the touch. I know that it's ready to go through the kiln. Then I'll put it in the kiln. It'll fire up and come out like this, bright white bisqueware. Now, do not move your projects around back here. I'll put them up against the wall and keep them as far away from backpacks and anything like that as possible. But then you'll want to just not go in and pick up your project, especially as it gets more to bone dry, because it'll break. So I'll put it through the kiln for you, and then you'll have the opportunity to glaze it after that point. But I do all my grading before it goes to the kiln.